Hey folks, welcome back to the View Podcast, episode 14 this week. And we've just come off the back of Daniel Farke's press conference. We're recording this straight after that. So this is not a live, it's a live pre-record. But we're recording it straight off the back of the press conference with Daniel Farke, where some very good questions were asked around the exiting of Georgina Rutter, which now, according to Farke, appears to all be but done and dusted and should be done the next 48 hours. Leeds have tried to keep him, but that hasn't worked. And the player is heading off after some emotional goodbyes. I'm joined by Joe Blackburn from the Joe Blackburn channel and Locke from Locke Leeds, the self-proclaimed biggest Georgina Rutter fan. And I just thought I'd bring him on to feel miserable in front of everybody today. So starting with you, Locke, firstly, how are you?
Honestly, mate, I'm good. I can't lie. Yeah, it hurt, and I know it's like, oh, it's football, it's nothing, but like there's reasons why I've spoke. I'm not going to spend like 20 minutes explaining why, but there's a lot of reasons why I liked him, and talking through lockdown and watching the Bundesliga, and he came on. I remember because there's no football. Like it was that time at lockdown, I was going through some stuff, and he played, and it's that little spark I needed watching him. Just made me happy. You know what I mean? Just seeing someone enjoy their life, and I thought, why am I sitting here in this dark room and and I watched him and he played really well. He's enjoying his life, enjoying football. And that is it. My idol when I was growing up was Ronaldinho. I used to play with a smile on his face. I love it. Plays like that, genuinely, I love it. Georgi he meant like a lot in terms of the club for me. And seeing him go, I knew it was going to happen, but in this kind of way, this shock moment, it's honestly sad. And the players, again, about uni when being in sides where you have players like him, them personalities, and when they leave, there is a shallow feeling. To be honest, it's really, really difficult to replace that personality. And we've not even talked about the talent. Best player in the league for me. And all that's gone. There is a massive hole, both in terms of talent and a huge personality gone. It's gutting, mate, to be honest.
It is, Joe, on the back of what was a dismal performance, especially defensively. We're seeing Leeds concede 6 goals at Ellen Road in 2 games. And the lovely attacking, flowing football that we saw during pre-season seems to have just been parked in the bin. And we've gone back to 10 minutes of intense football, followed by 80 minutes of sitting back and trying to soak up pressure. And then the news comes out that Georgina Rutter, and as you said before we've come on air, that we failed to break down a team and can't create chances, and then you find out your most creative player is off. That's not a great position to be in, and that's mildly putting it, speaking this morning.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to think of happy words because I know that's kind of my vibe and my attempt at doing sort of
you
a
can
brand.
Be sad. No, you can be sad.
I am. Trust me. Before we started recording, I told you exactly why this has not been a good day. But it's yep, and this has sort of added to it. But the weird thing is, in a way, I sort of saw this one coming. And a lot of that wasn't even because of the rumours and stuff. It wasn't because Brighton previously made a bid. It's because when the playoff final had happened, I was lucky enough to be in the ground and watch the match, and it didn't go well, not at all, but it was a nice vibe for a good while. And then I decided that after we'd lost, I figured, surely there's got to be something body language-y going on here. And I decided to stick around for a few minutes and see what was happening. And you saw Archie, who was just absolutely devastated, and everyone knows that. And you saw that Somerville was just sort of standing, staring at the crowd. And then the one player who was absolutely inconsolable was Georgi, because it just seemed like, to him, his world had just shattered. And it felt like, oh, this is... okay, so this is actually the end of you at Leeds then. I thought it would have happened earlier in the window, I'll be completely honest with you, because he really, really seemed to like his time at Leeds. But the way he reacted said that there was something imminent. And even though it wasn't quite immediate, it still felt like there was something there. And I love the guy, but that absolute bastard gave us a few weeks of hope that he was going to stick around, that we were going to get to keep seeing Georgi. And it didn't happen. And the evening after the playoff final, I was skimming through various stock photo sites for thumbnail-y things, and I'm going to ping you the image that like absolutely stuck with me, because I used it in a thumbnail yesterday. It's the image that I got immediately afterwards, and it was like, this tells me that he's probably not going to be sticking around then. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's a tough one to take. It should be said, not that it means an awful lot, but the player has done things the right way. This bid came in at 230 yesterday. Daniel Farkas saying not only was he aware of it, the player was aware of it, as were the rest of the team aware of it, and may have had some impact on the performance, which you have a lot of players fighting to get into that first team. So I don't buy that necessarily. You got players who a good performance would have benefited them, and most of them failed to live up to that. But it was floating around. The player himself made himself available for the game, didn't withdraw from the squad, wanted to play in the game. Locke, I suppose, slim pickings, but it's at least he's handled things the right way.
Yeah, and that's it. He always would, wouldn't he? Georgie is that type of character. He always has been. He's always tried to appease the fans. He never, you know what I mean? He always, everything he did felt like he was trying to be accepted and for the fans to like him. And he didn't need to, because everyone loved him anyway. The reaction to it on social media is, I don't think I've seen anything like that. Even, dare I say, like Calvin, the reaction went that crazy. I think it's, like I said, you get such a joy in watching football. That's why we love it. And he is the epitome of that. Yeah. And just on him, like, at the end of the day, he's too good for the Championship. Let's be real. Way too good. His ceiling is a joke. And I've had people talk about the value now. When you look at it, the amount we paid, we sold him for 40 million and Brighton have bought him. So they value him at probably double that. You know, the way Brighton do business. So you know what? Turns out that he's probably not that much money. He's a top talent, you know. Yeah, and he's going to smash the Premier League. It might take a bit of time, I think, but I'm going to be excited to watch him. I don't like, you know, as a fan of him, I enjoy football. I remember my favourite player in the Premier League of all time is Eden Hazard, because he just was so fun to watch. Now it's going to be Georgi, and I look forward to watching him. But sad, should have been for us, but it isn't.
No, it's not. And Joe, around that release clause, because there's no point getting into who did it. One of them is still at the club. The other two have gone, and they have a pretty horrendous track record of the contracts that they negotiated. Who's the genius that decided that a future markup on a £35 million signing is an additional £5 million for a player who has such a high? I get that they say, and Farka has said, the player himself was involved in the negotiations for that contract because Leeds were in a relegation fight. Arguably at that time, we weren't. We were 15th-ish in the league. But let's say the player does want that clause in his contract. 5 million add additional to the 35, assuming we still have to pay back some of that money, which means if that 40 is coming in, it's not all available to Leeds right now and will likely be staggered anyway.
Yeah, I had half a thought in my head then, and it's completely disappeared, because what then came to mind was, oh yeah, someone didn't just say, can we make that number a little bit bigger? But like, the additional thing onto that is, as much as we love Georgie now, at the time, none of us thought he was the right player for us. Everyone was looking at that transfer and going, no, we need a number 9 that finishes the chances that we get, and that wasn't going to be in any way, shape or form Georgie. So not only was it the wrong signing at the time, who turned into the right signing. Fair enough, he was fantastic last season and became one of my favourite players to have ever watched, and I already have a Hull waiting for him in my fantasy league team. It was a combination of, you've signed the wrong person, and now we know it was on a slightly crap contract as well. How? Oh,
you know what? Quite funny though, envisioning that point that Joe made. The fact that trying to envision Georgie sat in the contract room negotiating financials. A 19-year-old Jorginho Rutter was probably emotional that he was leaving at the time. Was sat there discussing financial. He'd have sat there just gone,
"Yep,
yeah." Like, come on, yeah.
40 million sell, 40 million release clause. That sounds about okay to you, Georgie? Yeah, whatever, man. Yeah, sure, why not?
Footballers, aren't they? You know what I mean?
I can just imagine going, I do not. When do I get to kick the ball? I do not know.
Yeah, literally.
It's a very good French accent as well, George. Should be said. You know, she
you.
digged it out more often than me.
I've got an uncle that lives in France, so if I am speaking a bit of French, it does come across like actually a bit French. But when I'm doing a French accent doesn't really work out too well.
You go full Stephen McLaren if you're in an accent country.
We
get up to the press conference because I wanted some certain questions asked, and I knew we couldn't ask all of them. And some people said that, well, that's not for Farke to ask; that's a director to answer. But Daniel Farke has been very clear; he is a manager of Leeds United and is involved in the day-to-day of the club, and he is not just a head coach. So for me, there were questions there that needed to be asked. Adam Pope, to his credit, did a cracking job of asking the question. He basically asked the first question, which was in May, Parag Morate did an interview with the press where he said Leeds would be ready to go day one. You're not. What happened? Farke has gone into an answer where he's basically said that he as a manager wants to be open and transparent with the fans. We will have to fight with what we have for right now, and we've got a good enough team to do that, which on paper you would agree with, results-wise questionable. He said that Parag was 100% correct and truthful in that statement, and that he believes that he will deliver because he is the most ambitious person that he knows. And then he said that this is a bit of a rebuild. And we said that jokingly a couple of weeks ago. We said it's a rebuild, and we were told it's not a rebuild. Now it is a rebuild. And he wants 4 players, Joe. But just from the initial answer about Parag's comments, which I've covered in today's news video as well, which don't necessarily line up what we're seeing right now. And they may still happen. There's still 2 weeks left in the window. They may get out and they need to get done. But on that question and where we are, what are your thoughts on that? It's a great question to ask. The first thing which should be said.
I think when it comes to answering the question, I think I agree on what you said at first, which was he's probably not the person to be answering a lot of these questions because he wasn't the person that made the initial comment. And whilst he is manager rather than coach, there is still that distinction. Like he can still say, I would like someone in this position, or ideally this person. That still doesn't give him control over who is leaving and when on what old release clauses and stuff. So I do feel it's a bit iffy on him that like Parag or someone hasn't come out and gone, okay, let's talk it through. But in terms of the being ready stuff, I mean, I guess there's a spin to it where like you never really want to be ready because if someone shows up at the last minute in the transfer window, you're like, haha, let's get you. And you've not been ready until then. But this is stretching that definition hard. This is, we need a signing every 3 days or something like that if we're potentially looking at 4 to 5. That doesn't feel like it's particularly likely. I was really encouraged by reading the stuff about Monaco taking a look at John Rowe. That was really helpful too. Yeah, it's looking a bit spirally at the minute, isn't it?
Well, Joe, on that, given now this is paper talk and it's press talk, it's not come from the club. But considering we've been ready to make a bid on John Rowe for 2 weeks and have yet to actually put a formal bid in, unless we're counting pennies out of a safe here and we're stacking them in, there's one person who's just getting 7.5 million to 9 million ready in pennies. We don't work quickly in the transfer market. We've proven that. Like they always say, the best business is to have your business done early in the transfer window so your team is ready to go day one, which Parag said we would be lucky. And now we're in a situation where we're not ready to go. We've lost some significant players and we have yet to replace them. Again, a statement that Parag made. If big players leave, we will replace them with similar profile. That has yet to happen. Now, again, it could still happen. But it's a hell of a lot of work to do in a very short amount of time. And Daniel Farke can say, we're not telling clubs that we have money all he wants. But we know we have it, so they know we have it.
Yeah. It's what, the 15th now. Yeah, what, wait 2 weeks to get in 5 players. Now, put it this: we were talking about this earlier, weren't we? Like, come 2 weeks, if we have been, as Farke keeps saying, ambitious. He said it 4 or 5 times, probably more in that press conference. Ambitious. Top targets, complete players who get the goals and assists, all these things. If the end of the window, I have them players in front of me at the club, I'll go, okay, right, you left it late. Maybe that's because, like, let's be real. If the better the player, the less likely the club want to sell. Other clubs will be interested. So negotiation can take weeks. Let's be real. If there's 4 or 5 clubs wanting him, the player needs to decide. The club needs to decide. Negotiations. So that, like, better players naturally can take longer. I understand that. That is a fair assessment. But yeah, the season has started like it did last season. I still think we look better in terms of, well, before yesterday or today, we looked better equipped in the game we played, the first game, than we did last season. For me, we were playing Shackleton on the wing, Poveda in the 10, Joffrey up top. It was a lot better. But there is still a responsibility right now to set the team up in a way in which you are ultra competitive in a game. And even looking at the side, there's still a lack of obvious profiles there. Obvious profiles. The number 8 profile is one that's been missing for weeks since Kamara left. How long's that been?
Yeah.
You know, we've been talking about Jovetic. Was it Jovetic? I forget his name.
Yeah,
Lubicic,
Lubicic,
I think.
But that's the one. But that's gone quiet. Are we negotiating a better target? Maybe we'll see. Like I said, maybe we are, and then we'll find out. Or maybe we'll just wait for 2 more weeks and we'll get the same player, and then we'll be like, right, why has it gone quiet for 2 weeks? You know, it's hard for me to really say this needs to happen right now, because the truth is none of us have a clue what happens behind the scenes. Like it's a tough market, especially when you are ambitious, and we'll see if that's true. If it is ambition, and the 5 players we bring in are genuine top players at this level that we can go, oh, they'll be really good, then you can relax a bit. But it is the fact that we always seem to be waiting till the last week, which is very frustrating as a fan base who wants to see your key assets, Somerville, Rutter, you know, Kamara. You know, people keep forgetting about Kamara, who's a big player for us last season for a lot of part of it. You know, all these guys you've lost, you need to see them replaced. And they need to be, and you'll never replace them in terms of how good they are, obviously, but you can still get quality signings in there. So he's saying we'll be ambitious. He said it for weeks now, and we've not signed anyone in 20 odd days, but he's saying it again. There's 2 weeks left. This is it now, because in 2 weeks' time, we'll be sat here going, more lies, or we'll be sat here going, all right, we've got the players we need. Let's go win the league. So we'll see.
On that, Lockie, and Joe, I want to come to you in a sec and ask you about what we actually need to do when we talk about those 4 players. But Lockie, on those promises made, they still have an opportunity to deliver on those promises.
Yeah.
But they've made a lot of public promises, and the ambition to get those kind of players in is one thing. Farke is talking very publicly about what he wants and he expects. If that doesn't happen by the end of the window, Farke has pretty much put his stall out to say, this is what I want to do this job effectively. So if it doesn't happen, he's kind of out on a limb to have to turn around and say, well, I didn't get the backhand I was promised, which is career limiting.
Yeah. But whilst the thing is though, Joe, you know, you've been a coach. If someone promises you things and you don't get it, they're the tools
I've walked, mate. I've walked when that's happened.
And right. So I think that's fair. If you get promised things in any job, in any situation, you get promised these things. And then when you get there, it's like, oh yeah, we'll see about that. You go, no, this is not what we agreed to. It's about trust. It's about understanding. And he clearly trusts them a lot, because he said in the interview today about trusting Prague and all that stuff. So he clearly does. But if they don't give him the players, he's clearly, like you said, saying in every press conference, that trust will be broken. And that's a bad situation for a club to be in. So not only for us, do they have to deliver these players, but for him and the state of the club, you have to deliver them. It's a huge 2 weeks for the future of the club for me. And like I said, he's ambitious. He said, look, Prague's ambitious. We will see. We will see.
Just to hop in on something along those lines, not only will it have been like a visible breach of trust that everyone can see, not only like inside the club, but outside the club, but it feels like it'd end up in a situation where Daniel Farke would then, the press conference after the transfer window closes, have to basically say, no, it was fine. It was difficult to get deals done and all that kind of stuff, because you can't...
And he looks weak, Joe, in that situation.
He does, yeah. And it becomes a question of at what point will, if we don't get the moves done, because I still feel like we have a lot of moving to do, we will get, I think, at least a good portion of the 4 or 5 in, because I don't think it's 4. I drift firmly closer to 5. But if it comes to...
Minimum 4, which room for more should they need them, but minimum.
But if it comes to, like, we've signed one more player and it's Jaden Anthony's come back, then I genuinely think we're in territory of Daniel Farke just goes, no, sod it.
Yeah.
Bye.
Well,
see you later.
That is, and respect it. I know Jaden Anthony, like, last year was different because he had a lot of, we know he had a lot of stuff on and stuff like that. But in terms of ambition, that's not an ambitious signing in the sense that it's probably quite an easy one that a lot of championship clubs could probably do. Right? It's not ambitious, is it?
But and also, and I said this on Joe's show, if you go for Jaden Anthony now, that feels like you could have got that done at the beginning of the window. Like you could have done that immediately after the season finished, bring him on loan for a second season. But you sent him back and you moved on and you talked about ambitious targets and he didn't come in. Nor has he been linked with the club in any way. So if Anthony is the player that comes in, you kind of feel like that's what we've gone through our list of wingers. We haven't been able to get any of them, so we're bringing Jaden back, which is unfair to him as well.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like I said, there's always contrast with Jaden Anthony because he's not as bad as what he was last year.
No,
he's a better player than that. But I'm not saying he's the right option for the ambitious title, because he isn't. Let's be real. Like, there is a lot of good players out there that would you see linked and you go, ooh, that's ambitious. Jaden Anthony wouldn't be that, respectfully. And I like Jaden Anthony. I think he could go to the championship, like a Hull or something like that, and do really well. But the ambition side of it is, for me, saying we're going to get players that are arguably too good for this league. And there's a lot of pressure on that. Farkas said it like 8 times in his press conference. So the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. My dad loves that saying. The proof's in the pudding. We will see. And let's just say this, and we all know, come the end of the window, if we've not got what we want, we have failed as a team to back what is needed. And I know it's difficult, and that's, working in kind of that recruitment side of it, it is very, very difficult, but still at the end of the window, whatever it is, if you've not got the targets you wanted, you're still a failure.
Yeah.
A lot of it isn't your fault, but it's still a failure. So, yeah, we'll see.
Joe, the players that he needs to bring in, he talked again today about that. He talked about the left back. We know that that's the backup for Firpo. We know that's a smaller enough signing, or a young player, or somebody who's happy to play backup and play a couple of minutes. He's talked about a centre midfielder again for a while. He's talked about getting that centre midfielder in. We know it's a first choice number 8 that he's looking for. He's talked about a Cree Somerville replacement. Again, we expected that pretty quickly to be after Cree left. We thought Johnny Rowe would be the player. That hasn't happened. We still haven't formalised a bid for the player, which suggests to me he's not the player we're interested in. Otherwise, we would have at least put some form of a bid on the table by now, but we haven't. And now we've talked about Georgi replacement as well. That's 4. That's just the 4 we need, without adding maybe a loan cover for a striker, or another loan on the wing somewhere else to replace the Anthony position that wasn't filled. But when he talked about Georgina's replacement, he commented on high level, who is all rounder, who can do what Georgi did in terms of goals and assists, or more, can get goals and assists. That's a big profile of a player that there are not many of them around. And if you look in the championship, you're going into the Jack Clark, Sammy Schmoddick's positions. Or if you go outside of that, you're looking at maybe paying a bit less money, but maybe harder to get a player who's proven to be able to do that. And he's looking for proven quality. I mean, has he backed himself into a corner with that kind of statement of that's the player he's looking for?
I don't know if he's backed himself into a corner, or if he's basically said to the club, right, okay, fine, we've lost another player. This is what we need. Go and get what we need. I think it's a very public way of saying, right, okay, so I'm not very happy with this. Do this for me. Things might go better. But it's basically setting out a warning to the club to basically say that if we keep on down this path, it's not going to go very well. And there aren't many players that can replace Georgi. I don't think if I'm looking around the championship, there are any players that would be of the same level as Georgi. Because, I mean, the first thing that immediately came to mind for me was, I think it's a line from Moneyball or something, where it's just you have to sort of replace him in the aggregate instead. You have to do someone who can do the creative stuff and then someone who can do the finishing stuff, because there's no one that does both. And then you've also got the worry of, well, Willie's going to be looking around and going, well, the guy that gave me all the chances last season isn't here anymore. He's gone to Brighton. The guy that was my best mate has gone to West Ham. The youngest talent that is top tier at this club has gone to Spurs. Why am I here again? And that's just another one on the list as well. It's a mess.
Lucky, do you think we get these done? Do you think at the end of this window, we're in a position where we're saying, yeah, we're dead right to trust them, dead right to hold reaction, dead right to believe Farke, good job, well done? Because the players that come in, again, because of the quality he's talking about, especially in the Cree replacement and the Georgi replacement, will need to be players that have not been out of squads currently, will need to have had a full preseason under their belt, will need to be playing competitively. So the players that would need to be in first teams of clubs right now, which can make it even trickier to get. Do you believe that at the end of this, we're in a position where we're like, great work, well done?
Do you know what it is? And I know nothing's happening, but I truly don't think it's their fault. I like our recruitment team. They're very good experience. They've got very good experience. They've got very good track records. I think when they have the full tools to get what they need, I think they'll get it done. I do think we will 100% get a Korean row replacement. I do think that. As opposed to the depth, I still think we'll be short because of how late it is. But I do think we might get an 8, though that's gone quiet, so I'm wary about that. But I think at the end of the window, I'll look at it and go, look, we've lost too many good players, but I like the squad. I'll be happy with the squad, I think. could be massively wrong.
Joe, what do you think?
I think even being an optimist, I don't see a world in which I look at the squad at the end of the window and go, I'm happy with that squad. I think it becomes a world in which I look back on, is it the 31st of August that it closes today, or this season? Or I feel like I will look back. Yeah, just the day after, basically.
Yeah.
I will be looking back over the window and going, I preferred what it was at the start of the window.
I mean, yeah, of course. Yeah, I prefer Rutter and Somerville still, but
yeah,
I could have. I mean, I could accept the Archie situation because it was PSR and that's out of your hands, right? And that statement that the club keep making about we dictate the terms, you don't. You're not, and you haven't. Like, let's be clear. Mark Rocket went for cut price. Diego Rente went for cut price to get them off the books. You're not dictating anything there. You've been negotiated out of the room there, right? And you've sent 2 players away for less than 5 million quid. That cost you close to 30 million, right? So you've not negotiated that in your control. Archie's a PSR. You were hoping it was Cree that would go straight after Southampton and that would solve the PSR and Archie would still be here. No offers came in. So we could kind of begrudgingly accept, fine. Otherwise, it's a points deduction. Fair enough. Not happy, but okay. But then you say we're now in control. And then Cree goes, but he's got a release clause. So you're not in control of that. But then you say, but we're in control now. And then Georgie goes with a release clause. And you're like, you're not in control of these deals. And you keep saying that you are. And that puts you in a position where it's very hard to rebuild, like you used the word, trust. And the fans need to trust their owners. We have been scarred by so many owners. And as a fan base, are naturally skeptical of everyone in charge. You have to rebuild that trust. You cannot keep making statements that are just factually not correct. And coming into the end of this window, saying we will be at the top end of that PSR compliance, but we'll be compliant, but we'll get the players in to get this team promoted. That's a big statement and a big ask right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I was quickly mentioning what I said before, like before thinking, I'm sitting here at times genuinely thinking, like, why are we sticking to these rules? Leicester didn't. Look at all the teams in the Premier League that finished above us. They're all still in the Premier League. Every one of them. They all got deduction and they stayed up. They spent more. They got more players. Leicester came down, went straight back up with basically that ridiculous squad. We're the only ones in the Championship and we stuck to the rules. I don't want us to break the rules, but I'm trying to figure out what's the benefit of it. We're selling all our best assets. We are in probably the same position we would be if we'd have cheated and bought and spent more money. We'd probably be in the Premier League. And maybe on a 5-point deduction, which if with better players, you cancel out in a few weeks anyway. So the rules have to change as well. I think it's not strong enough for teams that are cheating because look where we are. You know, I'm looking going, could we just spend more money and go up anyway? And if we come back down, we'll have to deal with it. If we go up, it don't matter, does it? Oh, it's wild, mate.
But it's interesting. And Joe, I'll get you taking this as well, because if you look at the season we got relegated, the 3 teams that finished above us and prevented us from staying in the division all broke financial fair play rules. All of them broke them. Every single, even Southampton, who were getting involved in a legal case with Leeds against Everton, also broke the rules. And then you find out the teams that get promoted ahead of you, outside of Ipswich, also broke the rules. So that's 2 seasons back to back where you've been negatively impacted by being the best boy in school. And I'm Irish, and from an Irish financial perspective, without getting into politics, as a member of the EU, we overpay on what we should in terms of repayments to the EU. And because Ireland always wants to be the best boy in the class, but it negatively impacts all the people in the country. And then you look at Leeds, who are trying to be the best boy in school, and it's negatively impacting the fan base.
It's not benefit, does it?
No.
Yeah, yeah. Whilst we were having that little bit of discussion, I decided to do a little bit of second monitor searching, and I remembered a line that Farker said in his presser today, that when he came in, almost all of the players had these clauses in their contracts. So I figured, how many players is that of the current squad? Current squad including Rutter, because it's not official yet. Who knows? It is. He's gone. Current squad has 20 players, including Rutter.
Yeah.
7 of them have contracts from that time, which means that there are still technically landmines underneath the likes of a Pascal Struijk, under a Meslier, everywhere. It's not. It ain't good, is it?
No.
In terms of having control of your stuff, just no.
That question though that was asked. Can you reassure fans that there's no other exit clauses? And the way Farke answers it pretty much says, yeah, there's loads. There's loads. So if you're a club who's interested, start just putting in bids with increments of 1 million. You'll hit it eventually, in the next 2 weeks. So you'd be worried. I mean, Willie Gnonto has an opportunity to be the player this year now because everyone else is gone. And he did very well in his first goal and he played reasonably well at the weekend. But he could just go, affect this, I'm off. We know he hasn't got a release clause. That's the one that we know isn't there, or at least hasn't been hit. No. There's plenty of others he talked about. I mean, he mentioned Ampadu in terms of bids coming in for players this summer. He said Ampadu, and you're going, so someone's bid for Ampadu. And then he said, we've turned down other bids for other players, which would suggest, and it doesn't take an awful lot to find out a release clause. You just contact the player's agent and go, we're interested in signing your player and bringing him to the Premier League. Yeah, he's got a release clause of 30 million. Great, thanks for put that bid in the morning. Job done. Do you know, I mean, not saying it in a press conference doesn't allay any fears. If anything, I'm there going, more could go. More could go.
They could. I told you I had a dream about Strout leaving. Yeah. Just want to manifest that into existence. I don't know. It's a mess. I hate the fact that these exist. I hate them. Why? And it still might happen. Why do Burnley players not have them? Why are they still all there? They could leave. Let me clarify that. They could. There's still 2 weeks. Sheffield United, some of their players, like they all left. But you know what I mean? Like, why are they still here? Why are they not having this problem? What's going on? It's a mess.
Just to, just to introduce a teensy tiny little bit more concern.
Okay.
Ethan Ampadu.
Why not? Bring it on.
Ethan Ampadu signed permanently for Leeds United one day after the 49ers were officially made owners, which means that in theory, that could be on the old style of contract as well.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a fit. Oh, imagine.
Well, on current form, you might take it. The season hasn't started great. I'm joking, folks. We're gonna wrap it up there and we'll leave it at that. There's not a whole lot else we can say about this. We'll see how we are going into the weekend. There's no point in even talking about football at this stage. We need to get past this stuff and see where we are. There's 2 weeks to go. There's a lot of work to be done, as the lads have said. Signing every 3 days, which will be an exciting close to the window for fans and might actually get a bit of positive mindset around the place. But it's a lot of work to do. We'll have to see how it pans out. But a massive thanks to Locke and to Joe. Their links are down below in the description. You can check them out if you're watching it on YouTube. If you're listening to the audio, you can go check them out on YouTube. Joe Blackburn and Locke Leeds. Check him out there. And I'll be back tomorrow morning for the news on Friday. And we've got the match preview with Andrew Stats-Dalton tomorrow evening, as well as countdown to kickoff 45 minutes before kickoff on Saturday. Folks, massive thanks as always. I'll talk to you soon. See you guys.